I didn't even see y'all. I wasn't ignoring you. I just didn't see you.
You didn't see me. Because we are. Yeah, you're blind. You are really blind. Say all they got.
Alright guys, we'll go ahead and get started. It is 7:30 on my clock. We'll start out with prayer. John, would you like to lead us in prayer?
Father, we come to you one more time on this side of eternity. Thanking you, Lord, that your eyes upon us, your ears inclined to our prayer. God, we pray, Lord, that we could do something beneficial for this town, for our people, especially something would help our younger people in the future. We ask for your wisdom, your knowledge, and your guidance. Father, we'll ever praise you in Jesus' sweet humble name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I just want to let everybody know, just put your phones on silent for a minute. That way we don't have much phones buzzing. I was telling the guy at work, I said, since I took Mayor, I said, I was healthy as a horse. I've had shoulder surgery, 3 hernia surgeries. I said, what am I doing? I said, it ain't that hard, is it? I mean, Jim takes care of pretty much everything.
Is he having home and you're beating him?
I think Karen beats me.
Yeah, I think you're having home.
And when we have our public comment, of course, you got 3 minutes to speak unless you're on the agenda, but we'll go ahead and get started first with the approval of the previous minutes. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make it.
Second. Jerry, got a second. Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Yes. You second it.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is the appointment of council member to fill vacancy.
That's a vacancy that we have a result of Kenneth Shepherd resigning, and Kenneth's term ends December 31st.
I'd like to nominate Joe Brown McLaughlin for that position. He cares about the town, and I think he'd make an excellent council member.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Do I have any discussion at all? Mr. McLaughlin, anything you want to say, or you got a second? You don't have to, but
Well, I would feel it a privilege to be a member of the council, and my whole agenda would be to beautify, to keep the town looking good. I don't have anything personally involved in being on the council, but other than just to see the beautification of this town to continue. Thank you for the nomination.
yeah, thank you. Any more nominations? If not, let's go ahead and motion's been made.
Yes.
Wait a minute, he nominated, but we
In a
need to get a,
Third.
Yeah, close to make a motion to close the nomination.
Yeah, make a motion.
a motion to appoint him. Like he nominated him, but we didn't make a motion to actually appoint him.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. All right.
And I vote yes.
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 Is there any objection to go ahead and come on up tonight, and then it's up to y'all, you're the council?
I can swear him in now.
Yeah, if you go ahead and do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, bring him on up here.
Only person that can't run around with anymore is Jim Single. No more motorcycle riding at all. Not unless I'm with y'all.
If you just stand right there, I'll swear you in. Rather than repeat all this, I'll just read it all, and you can say, I do, and that'll be it. Raise your right hand. I, Joseph Blair McLaughlin, having been appointed as council member for the town of Cedar Bluff, Virginia for a term ending December 31st, 2018, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon me as council member according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
I do.
If you sign. Today is April 10th. Sign right there. You will see.
Okay, moving on,
Out of here.
public comments. Any public comments tonight? Tim?
Tim Altizer, 205 Old Kentucky Turnpike. Having been out of town, I returned home to become aware of the mass mailing by the town. Much of this mailing appears to me to be nothing more than pure propaganda by the town attorney and ex-councilman Kenny Shepherd. Unlike the town, I don't have the luxury of using taxpayer money to respond to this mass mailing. There's a faction that want the people to believe that the special prosecutor's opinion letter is the proverbial smoking gun that proves conclusively that this entire situation was a result of lies and misinformation that I supplied to the authorities. They want the public to focus on one word: malicious. What that faction doesn't want the public to know is that for a prosecution to be malicious, it must proceed past a point where there's reasonable probable cause to believe that a crime has been committed. In April of 2013, before my wife was terminated, I spoke with the Tazewell County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, who sent an investigator with the Virginia State Police to my home. I gave that investigator retirement plan statements and official town documents. That investigator and a representative of the Tazewell County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office went in front of a Tazewell County judge to request a special prosecutor. That special prosecutor went in front of the Tazewell County grand jury, which returned a true bill, and the town manager was indicted for embezzlement, and then those charges were dismissed. The state police investigator and the special prosecutor were made aware of the federal civil case and my wife's dismissal early on during this process. I did not bring this indictment. This could have ended at any step during this process with a finding by any of these individuals that there was not probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed. There are those who want the public to believe that I somehow manipulated a state police investigator, 2 Commonwealth's attorneys, and a grand jury into indicting the town manager. Ask any of these gentlemen over here that wear the law enforcement uniforms that are involved in the criminal justice system what the probability of that happening is. Mr. Carmody's press release leaves out one piece of information from the special prosecutor's opinion. That is that Mr. Carmody is also mentioned by name. He leaves out that he would testify that he gave the town manager legal advice approving the holding of the employee's money. Acting on the advice of an attorney does effectively bar prosecution. But I'm confused by this. In the town manager's sworn oath deposition in the civil case, the town manager was asked point blank, was the question of holding checks ever discussed with legal counsel? His answer was, not to my knowledge. The town manager was also asked, had you ever felt like you needed to discuss with legal counsel whether it was a potential legal issue to be holding those checks? The town manager answered no. On the one hand, you have Mr. Carmody would testify he gave the town manager approval to hold these checks. And on the other hand, you have the town manager swearing under oath that to his knowledge, this discussion did not happen, and he felt no need for it to happen. I do not see how both of these statements can be true. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any more public comments? So,
Linda Singleton, 109 Singleton Lane. Our town has been richly blessed by having Jim McLaughlin as our town manager. He has gone beyond helping our community, giving of his time and energy in improving our town by getting grants, going to countless meetings, and meeting with county and state officials to make sure our historic town of Cedar Bluff is recognized throughout the state. When our town and town manager is in the headlines of papers showing negative things that turned out not to be true, it was a reflection against every citizen who lives in our beautiful community. When someone like Mr. McLaughlin, who time and time again has shown his honest and sincere love of community, not just because he is paid, but because he wants to see our area grow and progress. Mr. McLaughlin was wrongfully accused of being dishonest, and for someone who is an honest person, it was a horrible experience for anyone to go through, especially when your father is dying and you have to leave his bedside to protect your reputation. The expense of an attorney, time away from running our historic town, should not have to be a burden for our town manager, Jim McLaughlin, to carry. I would like to see our council find a way to reimburse Mr. McLaughlin for the expense he has had to pay to prove that his reputation is above reproach. Thank you.
thank you. Any more public comments?
Mr. Mayor, could I say something concerning that? Would that be all right?
Sure.
I'd like to ask some questions to Mr. McLaughlin. On our tax report, could you tell me roughly how much, Mr. McLaughlin, could you tell me roughly what taxes we collected year before last in our rating?
The last season, we collected 97, right at 97% of all of our property taxes. So far this year, we are at 94%, and that's before the delinquent notices will go out in June. We always send the delinquent, we send the second notice out about a month after the tickets go out, and then we send delinquent notices in 6 months. So we're already at about 94% this year.
I've noticed getting a report from Tazewell on 5 towns in Tazewell County that we are among the highest rated. I also noticed in years past, with penalties and interest, that we are 100% of tax collection water fund. I'd like to ask you, Mr. McLaughlin, how long have you been town manager?
35 years.
35 years. In 35 years, how many suits have we had against town?
Several, most of them in the past few years.
Have we had any outside the past few years?
We've had some boundary-related suits in years past.
Have we had a personal suit against you in the last
No.
34 years? Up until a few years ago, I noticed here we've got 5 suits recently. Most of them have been pointed at you. Through possibly 13 different mayors. Mr. McLaughlin, how much would you say these lawsuits that we've got recently, what do they cost our town?
Just the suits that we've had to defend ourselves against just since Marilyn Altizer was terminated, brought by her and her husband, have cost tens of thousands of dollars to the town and to our insurance carrier.
Has one suit cost $50,000 or better?
I think one was over 80,000.
$80,000 for the town. The way I've added this up, somewhere around $150-some thousand, this town has spent on lawsuits that have wasted the time of the people, the lawyers, and the town. At $150-some thousand, if I may ask, and I'd like to ask, what's this last lawsuit cost you?
I had to withdraw $10,000 from my retirement fund. 25% of it went to taxes and the balance went to the lawyer.
Has our insurance for the town raised because of these lawsuits?
Well, we had a huge increase in our liability insurance a year ago, and of course, that's based on statewide lawsuits and for liabilities that the insurance has to pay.
Would you repeat again what you spent on your own self?
I had to withdraw $10,000 from my retirement fund, and they withheld 24 or 25% for taxes, and the balance went to my attorney.
Would I be fair in saying that most of these lawsuits are coming from Mr. Altizer? That's
Yes,
causing this?
he and his wife. And as I've said before, he stated when she was terminated that he would go after the town, and for 5 years, that's all they've done. 5 years. It's pathetic that somebody 5 years later would be doing this.
And $150,000 cost
And
to the Cedar Bluff people?
and countless hours in the office, needless audits, and defending ourselves in these suits, yes.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin.
All we got.
I needed that information on myself.
Okay, any more public comments? Okay, next is approval of the bid to sell the 1996 Ford F-800 truck.
Where do the bids stand?
Okay, last month when we discussed that, our attorney advised us we had a bid of $15,000, and we also had a bid of $250 over the other highest bid, up to a maximum not to exceed $25,651. Our attorney advised us that the only way we could accept that bid is if they paid the full amount, $25,651. Otherwise, he said we would have to go with the next lowest bidder. So those bidders are here tonight if they want to
Yes,
speak to that.
we discussed it and we're prepared to bid the $25,651 for the truck. There was one issue with the repair that potentially will need to be made, but we spoke with the town manager about that.
Terry, do you want to?
That's a bearing in the passenger side front wheel. And we talked about it, about having that bearing checked to see if it needed to be fixed. If it needed to be fixed, have a bearing put in it, and then they will get the
You
$25,000.
want to make a motion that we have that checked, and if it needs to be repaired, do that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we have the bearing checked, it needs to be checked to replace.
Second. Here, second. Second. Any more discussions, any discussion on it?
Are we pending the burn before we make the sale?
Well, I think that was their concern, so.
But if we're guaranteeing we're gonna fix it, we could go.
Right.
I think we need to make a motion to, either way, we fix it and let them have it,
Right.
get it out of our system.
Yeah.
But do you want to make the motion to repair that and to sell it to them?
Yes.
And I'll second it.
All right, John, go ahead.
Say
I vote yes.
aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
What are you gonna do with it? I don't know. Next, I have Linda Singleton, City Bluff Business Association.
Thank you. If you will take one of these and just pass it along there. And we are having a free flea market and cruise in on May the 5th. We're gonna have a food vendor, which will be Cornerstone Assembly. They are back on the turnpike back here. They are going to provide food that day, and probably here at the town square right now, as far as I know. It's a one-day free permit, and it's sponsored by the Business and Professional Association. Vendors can set up over at the school. We've got permission there. They can also set up at Crosswalk Plaza, also here in the town square. And the cruise in the cars, we're talking about down at the Old Mill and over at the post office. And of course, over at the funeral home, we're gonna have to wait and see about what's going on, taking place there. But the town's more than welcome to use it that day. So anyway, we're all excited about this. We've had a lot of calls about it. And it should be a wonderful day for us. It's going to be from 8 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that should give everyone plenty of time to, well, the saying is, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So you all come out and enjoy the day. We might even have some music out here.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I've got enough treasure to make everybody happy.
We do too.
Crossroads Engineering.
Your step in there.
I'll be quick. The water project, we did get an email from the project engineer for the funding agency. He is retiring in the next several months, so he's anxious to get the water project wrapped up and finished before he goes. So we're going to pass that along to Rick and encourage him to try to finish up what's left on that project. And Jim gave me the most recent annual summaries for the wastewater flows for the regional wastewater facility that's the town, the county, and Richlands share ownership and operation and maintenance costs. And I'm sure everyone's seen it, but the cost to treat wastewater over the next 12 months has went up significantly. So nearly double.
Yeah.
So
The largest increase we've ever had since we've had it.
timely that we're starting the.
What's caused that raise, Mr.
Well,
It's just based on the flow percentage. It's metered flow.
your percentage of the total flow has went up. So even if those costs remain somewhat uniform, you're paying a much higher percentage of them.
And it's not just percentage, the actual flow has greatly increased.
Yes.
Wow.
According to the committee.
Wow.
Well, that's what I've discussed with him. It's, I really don't understand why it would have increased, but I just got these figures, so hopefully the engineers will be able to help us.
Okay.
Yeah, there's several things we'll be looking at. Not just the flows for the town, but you know, a lot of these separations of the volumes between the town and Cedar Bluff and Richlands hinges on the accuracy of 1 meter, and it's the type of meter is subject to anything from debris in the wastewater flow. There's all kinds of calibration issues that can happen. So we're going to be looking at those to see that the meter is functioning properly. We know that there's some I&I in the town. There's no question of that. But we also know that there's likely I&I in the other two partners' systems also. And historically, and all I have is last year's compared to this year's, but you know, those flows will go up seasonally for each participant and somewhat proportionally. those proportions really don't make sense of the following, or the past 12 months. So, we'll be looking at the meters, we'll be looking at the town system also. But it's significant. Your average treated gallons for the past 12 months were 109 million, let's see. Total gallons for the 1 year period was 109 million gallons. The previous 12-month period was 57. So it's a significant change. And your percentage of the total flow from March 16 to February 17 was 8%, and it's now just below 14%. So it's significant.
What kind of flow meter is this thing?
It is a ultrasonic?
I think it is.
Well, you say like it's out of date or something?
No, what it does is it measures the height of the liquid below the sensor. So anything that obstructs that flow, if there's debris in there and that debris is floating, it sees that as a higher level and assumes that there's more wastewater flow than there is.
Where's this thing at?
It's down on Edgewater. There's a little side road that runs underneath the
Down on the lower end.
tracks and parallels the.
Yeah.
How often do they check it? I mean, is something you check all the time, or?
I'm sure that they check it monthly, that we have monthly readings. But there's a digital display in a control cabinet, and then the meter's installed in a vault beside of it. So
There's nothing you could go look and see if there's debris.
we talked to Rick just before we came to see if he has a key, and he does not have a key, but he assures us he can get one and we can check some of these things. So
I got some boat cutters.
Who maintains it?
That's the key to the city.
Richlands maintains it?
yes, normally the meter, the downstream or the service provider maintains the meter. So
So that would be
So
Richland.
do they have a record of their service
well,
states and yada yada?
They may.
and stuff? Oh, man, so don't use $80.
we know that they are, well, at least there's all indications that they're reading the display monthly because those readings show up in the monthly bill.
But that's,
Are they checking the gauge itself inside of the vault?
but you're, am I right to say that you're looking at 100% difference in a yearly reading?
That's pretty close. Yeah,
And it's never changed like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a
That's-
huge
What's
unexplainable
that mean?
difference.
Money.
you're paying a significant more percentage of the cost to operate that facility.
You'd think that would have crazy equipment.
We're talking like a
You
double.
think you'd have a check meter?
Yeah,
If you're,
It's a pretty important meter.
exactly, I mean,
there's
you're using,
And sewer meters are notoriously prone to errors. James, it's not like a water meter. You've got a good functioning water meter. It's pretty accurate. But sewer meters, there are things that can affect those readings.
yeah, when you're talking about the open channel flow, which is a gravity
that's a
sewer.
fault with an ultrasonic meter. There's other meters out there that's more efficient.
Right. And we talked too about seeing what the calibration schedule for that particular meter is, if that's something that's done annually, it may be in your contract. If that needs to be done annually, that is in a lot of other places.
And like I said, the engineers we just got this mailed to us and it just got given to the engineers. So we'll be looking into all these things.
Yeah, there was a, a lot of the months are low. November was particularly low. November Cedar Bluff's volume was 1.3 million. In February, it was 19.3 million. So just shy of 20 times.
Something right.
And the other two users didn't show a similar increase that you would normally see with I-9.
Yeah, it looks like in that same time period, from January to February, Richland's flow doubled, the PSA's flow doubled, and yours is 5 times as much.
Now, does this meter reflect on them, or is this just a reflect on Cedar Bluff?
It reflects, I'm guessing the way it's calculated, it reflects on Richlands. Richlands knows what's coming into the facility. The PSA has a meter, Cedar Bluff has a meter. The facility total, subtract Cedar Bluff, subtract Tazewell County, is what Richlands is left with. So if it airs high for either the town of Cedar Bluff or the county, then that would obviously be the benefit of Richlands.
Is there any avenue of contesting, making them prove? I mean, you 100%, you gotta have some more people, you gotta have some more flushing.
Yeah, there's,
Gotta be something
I don't
to
know.
justify that type of increase.
I think that would be tough to go back 12 months. But again, we're gonna look at the contract. Usually in the contract, there's provisions for meter testing, schedules, and if the meter's found to be faulty, a lot of times there's provisions in there for estimating based on a certain interval beforehand in the previous 6-month period.
Basically, you're talking about a custody meter in the water sewer line.
It is, and if Rick does get a key, it would be, it'd be appropriate for him to go on at least a weekly basis and pop the lid, check and see if there's anything in it. Whatever's in there may still be, if there is something that's blocking the flow and providing an erroneous reading, then it could still be there. It could have been flushed a long time ago. It's hard to say.
Would there have to be a witness or anything to check this meter?
It may be appropriate. It may be appropriate the first time and it may be appropriate every time to schedule a weekly visit to the meter with the neighboring locality.
Especially with a, okay.
And the same thing with the county's meter in Main Bottom. That's appropriate to, if the county's interested, for Rick to go up there and say, look, I'm gonna check this thing on a weekly interval. You're invited to come up there every time I check it.
So, at Baines Bottom?
Yes.
So what comes through Baines Bottom, does that ultimately come through this?
It is, that's subtracted off of our total flow and allocated back to Tazewell County. And even that meter reading looks unusual based on the number of connections that are there, and the average flow that the meter readings indicate. It's low.
Thank you.
We'll check it.
Thank you. Next is the town manager.
And I do want to say, in the recent case where the indictment was dismissed, the Commonwealth's attorney responsible for that made it very clear there was no crime committed. He said, to use a sports analogy, the court did not rule that the town scored more points than Mrs. Altizer. The court ruled that Mrs. Altizer did not meet the criteria to actually step on the playing field and engage in the actual competition. In other words, she had no business even bringing these charges. He also made it clear that the court, and he's referring to Judge Jones in federal court and himself, made it clear that it's obvious that this was just retaliation for Mrs. Altizer being fired for not doing her job several years ago. It's really pathetic that 5 years after that people have no more to do than to attack their town and cost their town tens of thousands of dollars. It would have been much easier just to do her job when she was here, so she wouldn't have been terminated in the first place. And what's even more sad is the people in this town that would listen to that and be swayed by their words, when it's very clear to all of us that this is done, in his own words, to get the town for her firing. And it's disgraceful, it's a disgrace to our town. I apologize for it on behalf of all the citizens of the town. Cedar Bluff deserves better than this.
I would like to also say something. The same council member who was instrumental in bringing about this problem has also been found to have past property taxes which were paid late without late penalty or interest. I have the proof right here in front of me. Never paid any interest, no penalties. This went on for several years.
We discovered that.
Unfortunately, the employee who caused the problem has been terminated and the council member has been removed, so. Just like Mr. McGuire, I hope this is the end of this. It's ridiculous, the way things have been going here for the last 2 or 3 years. There's got to be a stop put to it. You don't care about the town. You've never made any positive remarks about the town. Everything you make about the town is negative. Nothing never positive. Up when your wife was terminated, that's when it all began. And I think it just needs to be a stop put to it. I'm sick and tired of it. And we've lost 2 good council members because of this.
We discovered the late payments without the penalty and interest being paid. We discovered that after the employee was terminated when
Jennifer Hayes came on board and found that. I want to recommend Jennifer for doing that. She does an excellent job, and she's on time with all of her daily cash reports. This man can go back in the back now and pay his bills. He knows how much money he's got in the bank. He didn't know that before because I've heard him tell me 100 times, I wish I could get my daily cash reports on time.
sometimes it would be as much as a week or 2 late. The past 5 years in the office has been the easiest and best 5 years I've had because I've had a worker doing her job. Also, on the sale of surplus property, we last fall declared 3 items as surplus property. We sold that this past weekend, and it brought proceeds of $2,430 to the town. I mentioned our budget process last month. We'll be having a budget committee meeting prior to the May council meeting. The Overlook Park is open for the season. We are currently taking reservations at the park. We have started work on the fire station roof. The back portion has been replaced. We just started that this week. And want to mention that there is a special exhibit on the old Clinch Valley Blanket Mill, which was here in Cedar Bluff, at the Appalachian Art Center through May the 31st. And I've got a flyer in your packet about that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next is the payment of bills. Any discussion on bills? Any questions on any of the checks? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the payment of the bills?
I'll make a motion to approve payment of the bill.
I'll second.
John?
Yes.
Okay, next, unfinished business.
I got something I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
Might should have had it on the agenda. What is it? Serendipity? What's the status on that? Do we need to make some headway with this and get it?
I would suggest that we want to bring that up, we do that closed session with me or under that collection and legal litigation. I'll tell you exactly where everything goes.
Okay, we'll make that happen.
Any more unfinished business?
I would like to recommend, personally, I think, that Mr. McLaughlin was working for the town. The town got sued, according to the courts, unjust, And I think the town owes to pay Mr. McLaughlin's court bill, lawyer fees. I don't think he should bear that all on his own shoulders when he was working for the town. What he did for the town is the cause of it. And I think these expenses ought to be borne by the people of the town. They seem to be going along with this thing. And,
So are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion that we even, or think about it.
Or
You wanna bring it up in the next meeting or something?
maybe table it to the next?
Yeah, but I think we ought to give thought about, are we gonna leave that burden with Mr. McLaughlin by himself? When he's working, I personally run a business, and if my people are doing what I tell them to do, and it costs them expense, I think I'm liable. So I think the, board here, or the town people, and certainly the council is responsible for this bill.
So you making a motion that we make that decision tonight, or you wanna table it?
I make a motion that we think about it and, bring it back up in the next meeting.
Put on the agenda, y'all have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? And this is gonna be just put on the agenda, that's what you want, I
Yeah.
know the second is for.
I just want to think about it, I think it's, I know if I was a council and someone sued me personally, and I was doing what all you other guys want, then it cost me a lot of money, somebody ought to stand by me, putting myself there. So he is working for the town, and working and doing what we advise, or I presume everybody advised that.
And also, since you brought that up, I want to make it clear that holding those checks was discussed at least twice in closed session with the town attorney present. And our attorneys and everybody involved was well aware of that throughout the legal proceedings.
Okay, I've got a motion, and Terry seconded, go ahead, we'll start.
I vote yes.
Any more unfinished business? Next is a new business, I'm gonna go ahead and start it off for everybody, real quick.
Town report, sir.
Yeah, I missed the town reports, everything, y'all didn't have any, did you?
I got one.
Okay, go ahead, I don't think we had any.
Everybody else got one.
That's okay.
I think that's it.
You got the fire department, right?
Yes, sir.
You wanna go ahead and go for it?
City of Bluff Fire Department March report. The activities for the fire department during the month of March are as follows. 4 monthly meetings, responded to 2 calls during the month. Community service provided to a local preschool checking smoke detectors. Total hours of meetings and training, 114 hours. Hours responding to accident, 18 hours. Respectfully submitted, Brian Lockhart, Captain, City of Bluff Fire Department.
You got a report, Terry?
Yeah, I've got the police department. Responded to 24 calls, made 1 arrest, 31 traffic stops, 20 summons issued, 3 motor vehicle accidents, 1 traffic checking detail on the Indian Creek, patrolled 3,032 miles. And I'd like to also say that we have these coal trucks coming out of Indian Creek now. I don't know where they're coming from, but they were really,
Emma,
Yeah,
really moving on, and
We got that
Brown,
on
I
our
like
new
Rick.
business.
He's got on it and slowed them down. I think he's even issued some citations on it, so good job, Dan.
Give a couple of citations today, and, I had 3 different people come in my store and say, you need to slow down going up Indian Creek. I thought it was real good.
Did you have
Doing
anything?
your job.
For the new business, Chief and Danny come up today. On Old Kentucky Turnpike, we got coal trucks coming through. Is it in the morning, Danny, because they don't want the school traffic? So they're probably going to, what, Amanada, or, I don't know where they're going. But I went ahead and
Going
talked.
both directions.
All day, both directions.
So when they come up, I advise them to talk to the VDOT boss that runs Tazewell Claypool Hills. So they went up and talked to him, and then I called the main guy in Bristol, emailed, I can give you the name in just a second. I emailed 2 different people, and they faxed some stuff over, so they're gonna work with us to, whether we gotta put a weight limit, or we just put a, you know, size of a truck, I don't know what we're.
One thing that I think we can do right off is formally request the Commonwealth Transportation Board to prohibit through trucks on Old Kentucky Turnpike.
Yeah, the only problem we had was, it says any town which maintains its own street.
And we don't.
We don't maintain Old Kentucky Turnpike.
The VDOT does, so we have to ask them.
The good thing was, I did talk to them, they're gonna pave it this year, which is great. But, and I even told them, I said, you know, if we're gonna spend if you're gonna spend $70,000, or it might be 42,000, I don't remember the exact amount, these trucks are gonna tear it up. So they're with us. It's just, Jim's gonna get with them, or I'll get with them, and we'll do a letter and do what they want us to
Can
do.
I say something about that? It's not only about the pavement, it's the unsafe issue that's over there.
Yeah.
As you all know, the road is breaking off down here. There's no way if someone meets a coal truck there, someone could possibly end up in the river. Plus, there's the school, there's churches, and it's very unsafe,
Yeah.
very unsafe.
One thing you all might want to consider is what I just said, is making a motion and voting on us officially requesting the Commonwealth to prohibit through trucks
Yes.
on Old Kentucky Turnpike.
May I say something about that?
Yes, sir.
Because there is an alternate route, of course, you have to have that.
I drive a bus for our church. We pick up children here at the elementary school. I drove it today, and you're right. I drove the bus back down through there because of the school traffic and because I'm heading in this direction to make the turn to go to Richlands. And I told the lady that was escorting the bus with the kids, this is a dangerous place because I have to get over.
Yes, sir.
If a car comes, if the rear wheels,
Yes, sir.
we get off of that pavement, we're down in the river. And trucks shouldn't, you shouldn't have town trucks, and you shouldn't have those big
No.
tractor trailers
I
running
agree.
through there. That's not
very
made for
unsafe.
those. With
Very
other
unsafe.
traffic.
Well, I'll give you my word. Tomorrow, I'll have the engineer come from Lebanon. I know him really good, and a couple of VDOT guys, because I didn't know. I don't really use Old Kentucky Turnpike.
If they do come, you need to give them measure it, because it won't measure unless for
I'll
two cars.
I'll make sure
Oh,
Jim's
sure.
with me. If anybody wants to, I mean, it'll be done tomorrow, I promise you. I'll have VDOT down here tomorrow, we'll at least look at it, and you can help me out.
Right.
You'll be in the office for sure.
I've got meetings in the afternoon.
I'll get it done early in the morning. I'll take tomorrow off.
Thank you, we
and get it
appreciate it.
done.
And not only, I'm not here just for us, the neighbors over there has also asked me to bring it up tonight
Yeah.
about that.
I begged
It's
last year
dangerous, sir.
to have it
It
paved,
is.
and it just could not get it done.
Well-
It's just the weather come kind of quick, but we'll get it done, I promise
We
you.
thank you for doing
Hey,
that. Thank
there's
you.
one area there where that's pavement's broken off
Mhm.
is along that wall behind the post
Yes, sir.
office. The people, if they're coming up from Richlands going that way, they can't get over. I mean, there's a brick wall there.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll
So
see.
the other person has to get over, and if he gets over very far, he's in the river there.
As soon as the meeting's over, I'll go ahead and call them tonight, and maybe meet them at 8 o'clock in the
Could
morning.
that be,
Can we get a motion to
Yeah.
hold a public hearing on this issue, which would be prohibiting through trucks on Old Kentucky Turnpike? Can we get a motion to hold a public hearing at our next meeting?
Yeah, the statute requires you have to have a public meeting, so if you
Advertise.
vote to do that, then we can run the advertising.
I think we can put a motion and get it started. I mean, then the public hearing is when we can hear everything and discuss it.
I'll make a motion that we do that then.
I'll second.
Okay, got a second? Mr. Block? Yeah, okay. But I'll get,
thank you all, we
in the morning,
appreciate it.
I guarantee you.
Thank you. Thanks a
we'll-
lot.
We'll be over tomorrow. We'll take tomorrow off.
You look for a reason.
Yeah, thank you. Well, biscuits and gravy in the morning too.
Had of this one, you missed.
Sausage gravy.
You missed it.
See if there's any way you can call, need me, I'm on a loaf somewhere more.
Yeah,
Call me.
I will. I'll have the engineer from VDOT here tomorrow. Any more new business? And next is, it's closed session or anything for,
Make motion, we go into closed session under section 2.2-3711-A7, legal litigation debt collection.
I have a second.
I love that.
Aye.
Well, just let me know, we'll see if, Sean, where's Sean at?
By Sunday, although you just.
If we're eating, I'll make reservation taco with you.
Okay, you wanna go to the farm and to the creation museum? You do. May 24th. It's an It's May 24th. It's our church that's in the church. We'll be leaving the night.
Are you paying?
You'll take it.
They're not sorting out the asphalt. Probably next week they will, we can get some of his money. See y'all, see you, appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Can I have a picture? Jim? Yeah,
No, no, no.